Hey guys, how's it going? So this is a video that I'm pretty excited to be showing you guys today. I'm going to be doing two things in this video. The first thing is I'm going to show you how to bring in kind of a flat panorama, one that you can basically bend 90, 180 degrees, but then you could put a almost a triple monitor background in it. So like this kind of photo. We'll actually download this one and we will use it just as an example. The reason why I like doing this is because you can save a lot of time and not only file space. You can, if you want to do backgrounds in Lumion, you can go and you can make kind of like a forest scene. You can put the grass in, but if you're doing an interior kind of animation, then that can really eat up not only a lot of file space, but a lot of your time rendering this stuff out. And in reality, if you're trying to convey something to a client, they're probably not going to be blown away with what you've done outside. You want to focus all of your time on the interior. So what I think that using backgrounds for is just perfect for this, because just by changing the background, you can completely change the feeling of your entire scene. The other thing that I'm going to do is I actually figured out how to do this while I was kind of getting this video prepared is using Blender. I actually know now how to bring in kind of your own HDRIs into Blender. I'll show you how to make kind of a sky sphere. I've tried to do this with Sketchup before, but it doesn't work, because what happens is in Lumion, if you bring it in from Sketchup, then you basically have this physical ball that's going to be encapsulating your your scene, and then the light's not going to get through, because when it comes from Sketchup, Lumion almost thinks of that as like a wall. But if we do it in Blender, then the only way, like, you can basically orient the face so that if you are inside of this ball, light is going to pass through the outside of it, but then you can't see out of it. And what you'll effectively have then is an HDRI, and then you can still adjust real skies and do some of those effects to get the lighting inside of your scene that you want. And I'm going to go a little bit more into detail. As always, all the links are down below the video. I also recommend that you download Blender. You might be able to do this in 3ds Max as well. I don't know how to do that, but Blender is free, and I would recommend that you get it anyways, because in the future when I'm doing videos, there are actually a lot of tricks that you can't do with SketchUp. The only way that I know how to do some things, especially with the material IDs in SketchUp from like polygon models and stuff like that, you have to have a $120 add-on called Transmuter, which is good, but we'll get back on track what we're talking about here. So Blender is an absolute necessary program to have. There's a link below. Click on it, download Blender, and then you should be good to go. I'm trying to keep kind of the amount of inputs that you'll have to do to a minimum. So if you've never used Blender before, don't worry about it. We'll walk you through it. And on top of that, I will be kind of making some backgrounds and just HDRI kind of spheres that I'll make it so you guys can download them. And once they're properly UV unwrapped, then you can just go and basically stick any photo that you want onto them, as long as you have an equal rectangular sphere for like the panorama ball. And then you also need to have moderately the same resolution for the panorama background photos. But anyways, let's get into that. So first things first, now that you have Blender downloaded, I'm going to open it up. You can just click on the cube, delete it. We don't need that. If you want to come up here and click on the camera and the light as well, we can just get rid of those. Now, the best way to do this is let me just move this out of the way here. Just put this here for now, just so it's out of the way. I don't want to block anything. Okay, so you want to come in here. You want to click on Edit. You need to go to Preferences. In here, we're going to type Images, and then if you just type in Images, then you get Import Images as plain. So make sure that this is clicked on. What this just lets you do is, it's kind of similar to importing a PDF in SketchUp. It's just going to make it so that it's almost on a flat plane with the image stretched how you want it, and it's properly UV unwrapped, which is kind of nice just to have that done right off the bat. If you don't know what UV unwrapping is, don't worry too much about it. You don't really need to know how it works for this. So then just go to the photo that you want. For this one, I just got like kind of a nice forest background. Now, you want to hit N once this is in. You should be at this kind of screen. You should see just a flat plane. If you can't see the image yet, it's supposed to be like that. We're in the solid mode. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that up in the corner here where it says rotation, you want to make sure all these are 0. If they're not all 0, just manually click on them, hit 0, make sure that they're all like that. And then you have to come up to Object, Apply, Rotation. I know that this might seem like it's weird, and if you start doing this stuff with Blender and you just can't get it, then like I said, just use the ones that I downloaded. It's no big deal. I just figured that I should at least, show the people that are kind of familiar with Blender how to do it. So what we need to do now is we need to click on this, make sure that it's active. We're going to hit RX, which means that we're going to rotate it on the X axis, and then just type 90 on your number pad. And I think just typing 90 works. So we'll hit enter, and then we can just kind of rotate it a bit. And then you're going to come up here and you're going to type in face orientation. So for now, we're going to turn that on and we're going to come back to it. But basically in Lumion, it will only show the blue side. If we went like this in Lumion, you're going to see right through it. And this is the very important part because the light will go right through it. Like you won't get the shadows, which is very important. Because if it blocks the light, then you just get this really dark scene. And no matter what you do, you're not going to get light into your scene. You won't get basically the effect that you want. And that's no good. Partially why I'm showing you this is because it's much more important when we're going to do the spherical one. For this one, you can kind of just rotate it and get away with it, but you can't do that. Or you could flip it, but you can't do that with the spherical one. So if we're right here, just hold Z or Z, and then you're going to see this come up. Just drag your mouse down to material preview, and just while it's hover over it, just let go. And then you should see your photo. Now, just to help see it, I'm going to hit S and then just drag it, and that's going to scale it up. That's all you have to do. And then I'm going to go back up to Object, and I'm going to hit Apply Scale. And I'm also going to go back to Object and hit Apply Rotation. So that basically just means that you've kind of implemented that change. Like now it's in Blender's mind, this photo isn't rotated because you've applied it. It's at 0, 0, 0. If we tilt it a bit, then it's going to be it'd be like that. And you might be like, what's the point of doing this? It messes up the simple deform, which is how we're going to bend it. I have tried, as I've mentioned, doing this with SketchUp, and it's way easier, in my opinion, to do it in Blender. And then you also get that see-through wall effect, which is incredibly important. So the next step is we have to add something called an empty. So an empty is almost just like it's like a placeholder tool. If you rendered it out, you're never going to see this in Blender, but it lets you kind of manipulate things around it. So I think for now I'm actually going to turn off my display just so we're sure about this. I typically find it helps me to see the person when they're talking, but just so that we don't mess this up, I'll turn it off for now. So now we will go, ignore that. So we'll hit Shift A. Okay, we're going to see this come up. This is the add menu. We're just going to go down to empty, plane axis. All you have to do, you don't have to do anything with it. We're just going to put that in, and that's done. Then we're going to click back on our photo so that you see it has that this orange line going around it. Okay. Now, in your version of Blender, I don't think that this will change too much for future versions, but in Blender 2.83, which is what I'm using, you want to go over to this wrench or spanner icon, and this is your modifiers. So what this is going to let you do is it's going to make you can apply different things depending on what you kind of have to do. There's tons of stuff in here, but what we want is simple deform. Okay, it's pretty simple. That's it. Now we're going to go to bend, and we're going to go to the Z axis, and then we're going to go to empty. And now when you look at this, it's not doing anything. It's not bending it because we haven't given it any geometry. So if we hit tab, which is edit mode, then we can see that it's just one big face. but obviously we don't want this. We want it to kind of bend at the 45-degree angle that it is telling us into form. So when you are here, and again, if you can't get to this mode, you hit tab. If you hit 1, you can select the vertices, 2 are the edges, and then 3 is the faces. This is not that important, but just in case you kind of get stuck. So yeah, tab, you're in, no problem. I want you to hover over this with it selected and hit Control R. Now don't touch anything. You should see this yellow line come up. And what this is called is a loop cut. So that's going to cut basically this face in half. But if you scroll up on your mouse pad, then as you can see, all these faces. So we're going to be cutting it into, oh, I hit R there. So if you hit R, it'll go away. Or hit the right click. You know, good example. You just go right back in, hit Control R, and start scrolling up again. So you're going to click once and then click twice, and that's going to make it so it doesn't move. Because if you move it around, you can do that, which isn't a huge deal, but I like to try and keep it as even as possible. So now what we have is this, and there is a slight bend to it. If we come over to the angle, we can get that bend that we want, but there is going to be a problem with this. And the problem is that the face might not be orientated in the way that we want it. So I'm going to show you 2 solutions how to do it. You just do the one that you think is best. So if we hold Z again, we go to solid. All right. So now when we look at this, we want the blue side to be on the inside. Okay. Now you can make it so that this angle is -45, and then that fixes it, no problem. Or you can reorient the face, which if you just hit tab again, you hit A to make sure all the faces are selected. You go to mesh, you go to normals, and then you hit flip. And then that's it. So and then if I want to go back, I just hit 45. There you go. So holding the Z again, material preview, and then that's more or less what we have. So for this one, I'll just make it, I'll make it 180. Yeah, that should be fine for this. Maybe I'll just scale it up a little bit more, but now that we're at this point, it's fine. So if you've made it to this part, fantastic. File, export, FBX. I just drop it on my desktop. Why not? And I'll just call it background 1 because I've already tested this. But okay. So if we go into Lumion here, then I will bring this in, and then we'll do the spherical one just so I can kind of show you how that works. Now, so we're going to go to import in Lumion, find background 1. No problem. Let's give it a moment here. What I've also noticed with this too is that it makes it so that if you take even a 16K texture and you put it on the plane and then export it as an FBX, it really cuts down on the file size. Now, I don't know the technical reasons of why that happens. Like if we look here, this curve only has a file size of 24 kilobytes. Now, considering that, I think that the picture was at least it was a couple megabytes. If I go in here, I can actually find it. So it was just under 5 megabytes. So I don't know exactly why that is, but I mean, it just keeps it so your file size is a lot smaller. Now, as you can see, it got dropped into the ground, so we don't want that. We want to pull it up, and we're going to twist it. Just doesn't have to be perfect. Just kind of orientate it in the way that you want. I'm going to drag this over here. Now I'm going to go and I'm just going to see where that lines up. So, that doesn't look great. Not yet, at least. It's a little too high. It's too dark. So what we're going to do is we're going to make this a little bit emissive just so that it gives off some of its own color. Now I'll flip this back on for now. I think it's safe to put it down here. Okay, so just make it its own material. I turn the gloss all the way down just because if you turn it up, you kind of see the segments. I don't know if it'll pick it up on YouTube, but you can kind of see this glossy effect going on down here because it's not a perfect curve. It may look like it, but it's actually, I think we'll say 50 segments. So we'll turn this right down, and we're going to turn the emissive just so that it's it's not quite 0.1, it's just under that. And then that's going to give us, as you can see, when we make that more emissive, the trees, they don't, since they're dark, they don't really brighten up as much, but the background, the light coming through the trees does. So that, I think we might actually even just scale this down a little bit more. And this is kind of where it just depends on the picture you have. You just want to make it look good with your scene. So if we go in and go back to like this view, that's actually, I'm actually pretty happy with that. That typically takes a little longer to play around with it, but yeah, I'm kind of happy with that. We'll come up and we'll make the volumetric sunlight a little bit higher just to give it that, I guess, that kind of foggy effect. And then if I render this out, we should, be kind of left with a pretty good example. Now, I will say that one of the downsides to doing it like this is looking at the ground, you are getting shadows, but the trees aren't there. You should be getting quite a bit of tree shadow. And what I actually recommend you do is just drop any tree in there. It doesn't have to be fine nature. Just drop, it could be even just be cylinders. And I'll just quickly kind of show you what I mean by that, because you can just make your own tree shadows. Like if I just come out here and I drop nature, I'll get a tall one. What's yeah, that should be good. Let me just make sure that this is high enough. So I'll just drag this up, and you shouldn't be able to see through this. So I think that this will work. Well, maybe not. I haven't played around with this too much. This is just something I kind of wanted to show quickly. If the tree doesn't show up, like you can, okay, so yeah, you are kind of getting some shadows there. You can see sort of like the branches on the ground, and that just gives it a bit of a darker effect. And yeah, as I've mentioned before, I don't think that there's a way you can bring in the HDR custom lighting, but you can bring in the backgrounds. And now I'm going to show you how to bring in like the actual HDRIs, like the JPEGs of the 360 shots. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove these trees, and I'm also going to remove this background. Oh, actually, just one more thing. Sorry, before I remove this, something I wanted to show is that once you kind of get this in here, you can just use one model for multiple pictures. So I think this was kind of a similar, I guess, a shot. Now just remove the normal map on that, and then just make sure that it kind of looks right. But then just like that, you have a different background. You got to play around with it. You should never kind of keep it in the same place, just because each photo is going to have kind of a different camera angle. So in this case, I'd probably drag this one down a little bit more, because it kind of looks like the land is sloping up, and you kind of want to get it so it looks like you're only a bit off the ground looking out a window. But yeah, and you also want to make sure that the sun is coming the right way. In this photo, the sun is kind of coming almost to the left of the windows, but then the actual real skies are coming directly through it. So just keep that in mind. But we'll go to the next thing now. And I will delete that. All right, now back in, open up Blender again, and we're going to remove this completely. You can remove everything in the scene, and that is no problem. So what you're going to do now is you're going to add in another object, but this time we're going to add in the UV sphere. Now, most people that use Blender would say a cube is better for making circles in Blender, which may sound weird, and I believe that is true. However, I don't know exactly how it gets unwrapped, but I know for sure that the UV sphere works correctly with these photos. So I would recommend using that. If you know a better way, just comment down below. I'd love to learn another way of doing that. Now, once you add it in, don't touch anything. You have to come down here to add UV sphere. If you've already clicked something off and it's not there, just delete the object and start over. There's no other way to go about it. So I make the segments 100 and I make the rings 100. And then what that gives you is this like a much smoother sphere. And then I think last time I went up like 10. Now, we should still have the face orientation mode on. And you might be like, oh, I'm looking at the blue one. That's right. It's not right, because you want the red side on the outside, because when you're inside of the sphere, you want to see everything around you. So we are going to hit tab. We'll hit, if you have, everything should be selected, but if it's not, we hit A, A just means select all. We go up to mesh, we go to normals, and we go to flip. And then you should have a red sphere. So now that we know that that's working, hold Z again and go to, oh no, I guess it's already in material preview. Okay, perfect. Now we're going to go over back to the menu here. This part right here, this is the material properties. Open that up, hit new, and then rename this to whatever you want. Name it, let's name it HDRI. Okay, so I hit tab again. I'm going to hit assign. I don't know why we'll just turn face orientation mode off now. I don't know why it's acting like that. Typically, you don't see it in material preview mode, I think. So maybe it's just because we didn't have a material on it. But now this is what you should have. Just a plain white sphere. We know that it's facing the correct way. We go to base color, image texture, open. And then I will show you in a second how to get these photos if you don't already have them. I'm just kind of assuming that you already have a JPEG of a 360, but if you don't worry, I'll show you in a minute. So I just go here, and as you can see here, we have an 8K JPEG, 18K. It doesn't really matter. I guess I'll just, I'll probably just bring this one in, just because, as I said, it kind of gets scaled down. I don't totally understand how that works, but it does. So there we are. And now it might just take a second to load, but we should see it. So you'll have this. Now, quickly, I'll just show you great places to get this. So again, the links are always below, but HDRI Haven, if you go to this website, I like to just pick kind of an outdoors one. And then, something like this, abandoned tank farm. You just click on this, and then you go down to the bottom, and you want the 8K tone mapped JPEG. You don't want these ones because these are the ones that they're HDRI files or HDR files, and Lumion does not know how to take those. This is kind of the workaround way of getting these backgrounds in. So 8K tone map JPEG, and then we can also go to polygon, HDRs, and let me see if there's any free ones. So for this one, I guess this one is a free one. If you download this, it's going to come with the HDR and JPEG. This one is probably not the best for this example because I think that you kind of want ones that sort of have like a field or like some flat space. So as I said, like HDRI Haven has tons of stuff. They're all free, and you can use them commercially all you want. So from here, you should have some kind of JPEG. Now, and you'll have this. Now, if we go inside of the sphere, this is kind of what you have. And this is what we want. If it looks like it's a little lopsided, that's just my camera angle in Blender. But this is what we can export into Lumion. So we will come back out. If you're at this point, we're just going to go export again, FBX, and then I'll just call this Sphere 1. All right. Now, I like to get kind of right above it and look down because you want to try and you kind of want to get the area that you'll be, like your camera will be in almost directly on it. So now I'm going to import again, Sphere 1. That's fine. And this will take a second just because, like I said, I used the 18K one. I feel like you get kind of the same effect coming out, and the FBX files are the same size. So I don't know what kind of compression goes on there. Again, this is just something I learned today, so I haven't had too much time, I guess, to look into it. I was just really excited, wanted to share this with everyone. And then once this is in, you'll kind of see what I mean about how you sort of have to move everything around. Like you can't just drop a sphere in and say like this is, this will work every single time because every HDRI is a little bit different. And what the purpose of this is, in my opinion, is almost just to give it a sky sphere so that if you're moving around in your scene, you kind of always have a background and you don't have to worry about it kind of breaking that 180 sort of field of vision if you upload a background. Now, if you're just doing stills, I would honestly just say use a standard background. because it's easier. So I think if I put it right here, that's pretty good. Now, if I zoom out a little bit here, what you can only see, the half that we're looking at. And that's because, as I've mentioned, it will always show, like you're seeing through it, and then it's hitting the side, like the blue side that is good. But if I go inside of here, you're seeing all around you. So if I go back in my camera mode, now, as you look at that, we're just way too low. And this is kind of what I mean by just messing around with it. So I'd zoom out. I'm going to click on it again. I'm going to make this a texture, a standard texture, and we're going to, apply that emissive to it. This, I think, is a really great scene too, because the light is right here, like the sunlight, and that matches our scene pretty well. So the way that the shadows are going, it kind of matches what's going to be in our scene, and it just really helps add to that realism. And again, you could just remake this background with models in Lumion, but it will take you longer to render. And those fine details, like just like those pockets of kind of like dead mowed grass that you see on the lawn, I don't really know an easy way to do that in Lumion. You could kind of make your own material, but it's just not kind of worth the time when you can do it like this. So what going in here, we need to bring it down a little bit. We'll go to emissive, and then again, I like to bring it to right here for like an afternoon day. When it's at 0.1, it really starts to kind of give off its own light, and you don't want that. You just want to make sure that everything looks kind of realistic. And then we will also come in and we will just drag it down. And if if you're having trouble getting it to work at this, you can just scale it up. That's no problem. And then you can also do this, and this is what I love about the vacuum, bring it in. If you took the orientation, you can spin it just like any other HDRI. And as you can see, when it's moving around, you don't really lose that, I guess, that kind of depth. So I think I want it set up like right here. But let's go back in here and see if we can get a picture. Yeah, like that. Well, I think we just need to rotate it. But I think that the perspective is just fantastic for this. Like, I think that's exactly what we kind of wanted. So I think if we put this at like, it's about here. And then what you have is this. I might even bring it down a little bit more. Yeah, that's probably what I'll do. And you just kind of massage it so that it works the way you want it. But this works for any, I think they're called equal rectangular panoramas. So it means you can get the 360. You could, like if you don't like the way that it's clipping with the ground, I personally don't really, it doesn't really matter for this scene. But you can just drag it further up into the sky and then adjust your real skies to what you want. So I will drag this, I think I said down a little bit more. Did I say? Yeah, I think I wanted it down a little bit more. It just kind of get, almost looks like it's, yeah. And I think that's pretty good. So we'll render that one out again. And I also have a video at the end that I'll show you that I rendered out before this, just to kind of give you a better idea of like why it's so powerful to use this, because no matter how much your camera spins inside, you're always going to have this kind of, this background coming through. And as I've mentioned before, the shadows line up right here. You can see the trees and all that. That's lining up no problem. But then you're also seeing that same light, and that's kind of how it should be. So your brain sees that and go like, okay, that makes sense. And we've spent basically 2 minutes, and now we have the whole setting of the scene. And I just think it's fantastic. I'll show you too how you can kind of, once you have this in, you can change the HDRI up. So you just click here, you go to your HDRI. So I'll put a different one in here. And again, it does work sometimes a little bit weird when you switch back and forth between them, but I think for the most part, it does work. And delete this normal map just so you get you don't get any weird effects. But yeah, if I go in here, and then so I think that's actually, that worked out pretty well. But I think that we just basically rendered out 2 completely different scenes with different feels in just a matter of minutes. And if you get really advanced with doing this, what you can do, or you can basically make 5 different panorama files, like with the FBX files. And then you can bring them into Lumion, put them all on a different layer, and then you just render the same photo with different layer visibility, and you can render out 5 completely different backgrounds all in the same camera set, which I don't know of a way to do that in Lumion currently, and you're just going to spend way more time. So yeah, that is pretty much the tutorial. If anyone has like a lot of trouble with Blender, I can make a more, I guess, in-depth way of doing it where I'll just spend that time on it. Like, I didn't want to rush through it too fast because I wanted people to know, but I also didn't want this tutorial to kind of be about Blender. I wanted to focus on Lumion and kind of how to get the effects that you're looking for with the backgrounds. So yeah, in recap, download Blender, follow the steps you need to there. If you need 360 panoramas, go to HDRI Haven or Polygon. Those are my favorites. If you yeah, and if you need just background photos, go to Unsplashed and get like a triple monitor nature background. That doesn't really matter too much. That's just kind of personal preference. And then yeah, just scale it up, change the heading, play with real skies so you can kind of get the look that you want. I will, just before I end the video, I will show you a test video that I made with a different HDRI. It's it's not perfect. I just did it with 1 star, but I just kind of want to show you that no matter where you move in the scene, you are kind of getting the panorama moving with you. This one, I probably could have lined it up a little bit better, and I think the emission was too high, but I think it kind of gets the point across. If you can see, like, so you're moving through your scene, and then when it spins, as you it's a little too close, but as you spin around and you look out the window, there's still a background there, and you can basically move it wherever you want. So that is the video for today. If this has helped you out, please like the video, show it to anyone else that uses Lumion, and subscribe to the channel. If there's anything that you think I could have done better in this video or things that I missed, I'd love for you to put it in the comments, and we can talk about it. Maybe I can fix that in another video or anything like that. So yeah, have a great day, guys. I really hope that this helped some of you. I know that I was pretty excited when I when I found out about this because I have been trying for a while to do it. So yeah, take it easy, guys.